From script to screen, every film is brought to life by visionary creatives and executives, all sharing one mission: to captivate the audience. Hosted by award-winning movie strategist Kevin Goetz, our podcast, Don't Kill the Messenger, offers a filmmaking masterclass through intimate conversations with Hollywood's most influential voices. And now, your host, Kevin Goetz.
Deeply defined characters, high stakes, and emotional engines. This is the through line in the films of today's guest. Whether you're watching a grieving hitman take down an international crime syndicate or an elite CIA agent navigating the gray zones of morality, producer Basil Iwanyk is the force behind some of the most gripping and commercially successful films of the last 2 decades, from the Town and Sicario to the John Wick franchise, which redefined modern action and turned gun fu into an art form. As the founder of Thunder Road Pictures, he's got that rare mix of creative instinct and commercial savvy, someone who can spot a breakout script, launch a first-time director, and still keep audiences on the edge of their seats. Basil, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kev.
Man, we've been through it, right?
Yes, we have. And frankly, a lot of those movies that you pointed out, actually the 3 you have, as you know, because you worked on all 3 of them, they were not destined for greatness, and or the first cuts were bumpy enough where you're like, this movie is not going to work.
Which is just so hard to believe, right?
I know.
In hindsight.
Yeah.
Let's start with where it all happened and all your success came from, which is New Jersey and you, perfect together. Remember that? So you know I'm a Jersey boy, of course.
Of course. Pride of Rutgers.
Right. And you were Villanova, right?
I was, yeah.
But tell us about, I think you were born in Passaic?
Teaneck.
Teaneck. Okay. Not far.
No.
Tell me about how Jersey has informed you and your career.
You know, it's interesting. If you would have asked me when I was 23 or 22, when I graduated Villanova and I went out to LA, shame is the wrong word, but I was like, I need to get away from Jersey. Jersey has nothing to do with me. I'm an enlightened film guy, and now I live in LA. People would ask me, where are you from? And I used to say, just outside New York. You know, like, what do you mean? That's just, I'm like, yeah, like Long Island. I'm like, no, a little south, like New Jersey. I'm like, yes. And I just
You mean Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Delaware?
I'm like, no, a little north.
Yeah, a little north, a little south.
Like, in retrospect, so much of who I am as a producer is because of my Jersey roots. So much of it.
Tell us about that.
Well, I think like a lot of Jersey guys, I'm sure you have it too, we have a chip on our shoulder. Now, I don't mean it in a way that manifests in being nasty to people, but in kind of that chip on your shoulder, which is, I got to hustle. I got to outwork. I got to look around corners. I got to be able to take a punch. And people don't think I'm good enough. And I'm going to show them. I don't know if it's because we look across the river and we see New York and it's fancy and all that stuff. I don't know if because we were the butt of jokes for so long, but I have that chip on my shoulder where to this day, when people like you very graciously introduced me and talk about my credits, I still feel like I'm on the outside looking in to my career. I still feel like that 23-year-old schmuck that just got to LA and I better hustle. I never had the imposter syndrome of like, oh, they're going to find out I'm an idiot. But I always had if I don't stop moving and working hard and innovating, and if I ever bring a knife to a gunfight, it's over for me. You know, I'm first generation American too. You know, my parents were both born overseas.
Where?
Ireland and Germany. And when I say Germany, my dad's side, he was born in a displaced persons camp because my grandparents were Ukrainian slave laborers. They met at a displaced persons camp in northern Germany. And my dad was born in 1946 and immigrated to the United States like in the early 50s. And our name's in Ellis Island and all that stuff. So I grew up around immigrants, Irish and Ukrainian and Italian immigrants. And there was no entitlement. And it was always about just work hard, grind, grind, grind. Like the word grind was not a dirty word. It was like, that's what you do. And I think that at the time I was embarrassed by it, to be honest, because my grandparents had thick accents and I just felt like I wanted to get away from that. And so did my dad and so did my mom. My parents went so the other way. So like, for instance, my dad spoke Ukrainian and Russian and Polish in his house, and he wouldn't even teach my sister and I how to speak Ukrainian, Polish, or Russian. It was like, we're American. We're not European. We're not immigrants. You're American. You're an American. You're an American.
And that's where Iwanyk is from.
Yes.
Now, what about Basil?
I'm Basil William Iwanyk III. My dad is Basil. My grandfather was Basil.
That's a name that almost sounds of the manner born.
I know. Trust me. But the funny part is the anglicized version of my name is Bill Johnson. I feel like I would have had a different career if my name was Bill Johnson. It feels very kind of...
Eh.
There has to be a middle ground between generic Bill Johnson and Basil Iwanyk.
Basil Iwanyk is a name that gets you laid. I mean, it just does.
It was cool starting when I got to LA, but when you're in 7th grade, 6th grade,
Sure.
and it's like first day of school, they're like, Iwanky, Basil. I'm just like, oh my God.
I know. But you played basketball, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Which ended up very good later on. Didn't you play in games with Clooney and Mark Wahlberg and Jamie Foxx?
Basketball got me 2 things. My interview with Jeremy Zimmer to get into the mailroom at UTA. 2 things happened that were really kind of funny. One, because my middle name was William, my grandfather was Basil, my dad was Bill, and I was Billy growing up. And Jeremy Zimmer, I told, like, he's like, you're a big dude. I'm like, I exaggerated my basketball acumen, at least that I was like a star at Villanova, which I was not. And he's like, okay.
I like that you did that.
I had to. I mean, it was in the room. Well, I also lied on my resume. I made up a talent agency. I thought there were like thousands. I made up a talent agency. It was called Waterside Talent Agency. And he looked at it and goes, this doesn't exist. He goes, this is not even a good lie.
Why'd you make up a talent agency?
I had no experience.
But what were you saying? That you worked for the agency, you mean?
Yeah, I was like an assistant, because everyone's like, you're not going to get a job at UTA unless you've already been at a smaller agency. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to make one up.
Waterside.
Exactly.
How can we help you?
And he was like, well, listen, do you play basketball? I'm like, yes. And at the time, there were these great basketball games at Gary David Goldberg's house. The guy who did Family Ties.
Family Ties.
They were kind of like really tough. And Jeremy's like, okay, I'm going to put you in the mailroom because we need basketball players. I'm like, done.
That is not the first time I've heard this story on the softball team, on the whatever other intramural sport there have been. People have gotten internships or jobs because they needed that replacement.
Absolutely. And this is what the apocryphal moment, which is, I'm like, Jeremy, well, thank you. And by the way, everyone calls me Billy. And he's like, well, there's already a kid named Billy Goldberg in the mailroom. I'm going to call you Basil. I'm like, okay. I'm thinking to myself, that'll last a week. That was 30 years ago. And now I'm Basil. I've not been able to shake it. It's very...
So that was Jeremy.
Yes.
And how did you do with that game?
I did great. You know what's interesting? They played rough. And that's the one thing. I played with a lot of movie stars. And when I got to Warner Brothers, I was part of the inaugural lunchtime at the Warner Brothers lot basketball game with everybody. I will say this about quote unquote fancy people like actors and executives. I don't know if they're overcompensating, but they played hard. They played hard. They played tough. They weren't afraid.
Their competitive spirit is unbelievable.
My dad would say, like, take it easy on them. Your ego's out of control. Don't try to do this and that. And I got there, and they would elbow me in the throat. I mean, these are guys who want to win. And those were great days. I was so young and so stupid. And it was so fun. I was on house money. I couldn't believe I had a job.
So you were in the mailroom at UTA. You become an assistant at UTA before getting a creative position at Warner's, right?
Yeah. So I think most people that have had some success in film business, they were able to skip some step, right? They got really lucky. And for me, I was an assistant at UTA. And the idea was, okay, there's a blinking green light for you to be an agent. And like a self-absorbed idiot I was, I'm like, I don't want to be an agent. I want to be an executive. And I loved working at UTA. I loved being an assistant. I learned everything. It was my film school.
Whose desk did you cover?
David Kanzer and Chris Buchanan. And I thought to myself, I've done such a good job for these guys. They're going to be patient with me. The moment I told people I didn't want to be an agent, I didn't realize the clock was ticking. They were waiting for me to like get rid of me, but not Jeremy. And so I went up for all these jobs as an assistant. Right? I wanted to be an assistant to an executive. I got shot down by every job on the planet. I remember Martin Schaefer, who is the chairman or co-chairman of Castle Rock. I remember he agreed to meet with me, and like I was on my way there, and I get there, and they're like, "Oh, he looked at your resume. You're not." Like he sent me away. Sent me away. Finally, I get to Whit Thomas Films, and Whit Thomas Films was one of the lower echelon production companies on the Warner Brothers lot. They had huge production companies like
Golden Girls and so many others.
Totally. But on the film side, it was more of a TV company, and I had to meet with two executives. I meet with one. That person was like, "We love you. This is going to be great. We're going to hire you. You just need to meet with this other executive. She's coming back from vacation, and you're all good." I told everybody I'm getting this job. She comes back from vacation. She's like, no, there's already somebody else I want to hire. I just didn't tell my other partner. I was so devastated that the other executive said, Warner Brothers, the studio, is looking for a creative executive. I can't even get a job as
an assistant. How am I going to get the CE role?
And I remember thinking to myself, you never turn down an interview, right? You just never turn down an interview. And I'm telling you, Kev, I was so close. It was when I started realizing, oh, okay, these are my 2 years in LA. I'll go back to the East Coast, get a real job. And I meet with Chang Dungy, who is another CE at the time.
On the film side? She came from film?
Oh, yeah. And Channing was like, okay, this is Lorenzo de Bonaventure's guy. Like, this role is to work closely with Lorenzo, who is tapped to be the next president. He hasn't done there yet. Bruce Berman was the president. But he's like, this is a good opportunity. And Channing's like, I bet Lorenzo would like you. You have to do these notes on these scripts. And so I do the notes on the scripts, and Channing calls me and goes, they're good. I'm going to send you up to the next executive to meet. It was Courtney Valenti. And Courtney Valenti meets with me, and she's like, I really like your notes, and I think you'd be a breath of fresh air here. I was 24. We need some youth, and we need some like edge and some craziness. And Lorenzo is edgy and crazy.
Were Bob and Terry still running the whole ship?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Bob Daly and Terry Semmel, I'm talking about, listeners.
Yeah, they were gods. And so then I just met every executive at Warner's over like 3 months. And then I finally met Lorenzo. And to me, it was, you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. I'm like, I'm just going to be really blunt and really open because I have no chance of getting this job. And I remember I walked into Lorenzo's office and he had a poster, and it was a poster of Falling Down, that Michael Douglas movie.
Yeah. I tested that movie, I remember.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I walked in there and I'm like, I think that's Joel Schumacher's best movie. He's done some really good movies and really bad movies. And Lorenzo's like, did you know I worked on that movie? I go, no, I don't even know what that means, to work on that movie. He goes, A, I can't believe you actually have the balls and the stupidity to say that about Joel, who's like a god here at Warner's. And B, you're right. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And so then I got hired. And I met Bruce Berman, I got hired. And it was, again, I have this gigantic opportunity. Everyone else is smarter than me. Everyone else has better connections. But I will work harder than everybody at that damn studio. And I remember, Kev, it was my first weekend reading.
How many scripts?
13, and like a book. And I remember there were 2 scripts that didn't make any sense to me that were like priority projects. One of them was Kundun, the Martin Scorsese movie.
Oh.
And I read it, I'm like, this is nonsensical. But it's Martin Scorsese, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
I remember working on that one. That was a very tough picture, yeah.
Very tough picture. And then it was U.S. Marshals.
From Fugitive, right?
Yep.
Oh, I love that one.
And it gets to me, they're like, Basil, what do you think? And I'm like, oh my God. And I was honest. I was like, I don't think this is good. I don't think this is blah, 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 blah. I didn't realize the politics of the weekend read, which is you badmouth someone executive's projects, you're on their enemy list. The irony is that I became the executive on U.S. Marshals like 3 years later.
Who was the executive then?
Lorenzo and Tom LaSalle.
Ah, Tom LaSalle.
But yeah, those days at Warner's, listen, I say it all the time. Hemingway say about Paris, it was a movable feast. I will always be ingrained those years there.
Sure.
It was so magical.
What happened after that meeting when you left? Did Tommy sort of read you the riot act?
Yeah, they all came gently, and they're really cool about it. They're like, we appreciate your brashness, but just understand the politics here.
Do not be a project killer.
Do not be a project. The person that I owe everything to was Courtney Valenti.
She's one of my favorite people on the planet, I just want to tell you.
She's amazing.
She's such a delightful executive, so inclusive, so collaborative, and so insightful herself.
She's soulful. She's wise. She had all the time and patience for me. And I was a meathead. I was an unformed idiot. And if I had trouble with notes, and by the way, and same with Channing. Channing was incredible. I was just really blessed by people who had my back. And I know it was a blessed time. I'm very, very lucky.
What made you leave there and go to Intermedia?
Yeah, intermediate. So I became a vice president and I had a great stretch.
How long were you there?
6 years.
And in those 6 years, just rattle off a few of your movies you were involved with.
Ocean's 11, Training Day, Insomnia. Here comes some good ones. Batman and Robin.
Oh, man.
Wild Wild West. By the way, they put me on Wild Wild West as like a gift. They're like, here you are, you're going to get promoted. You're on Barry Sonnenfeld and Will Smith's next movie after Men in Black.
Turned out to be a disaster at the box office, didn't it?
Oh, my God. I remember we previewed the movie in Northern California. We took the Warner jet. And remember Barry Sonnenfeld's like, here's the deal. My movies have loopy tones. So trust me, everyone's going to laugh at these jokes. Because we saw the movie and we're like, it's not that funny. And we go on the Warner jet and I'm like, this is so great. I'm on the Warner jet with like Bob and Terry and everybody. And we preview the movie. It's like stadium seating. And John Peters is on the top row. And he's having this gigantic box of peanut M&Ms. And halfway through the movie, it's like dead silence. No one's laughing. And he knocked the peanut M&Ms over. And you're like, tick, 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 tick. And it rolls down the
right, the whole aisle.
And someone yells out from the theater, goes, what was that? And John Peters goes, those are my balls. And I remember at those moments where it's pure terror at the minute. But within a couple of days, I realized, God, these are becoming great stories. One day, if I keep my job and keep working this business, I'm going to have a collection of great, spectacular flame-out stories.
You know, I think my old boss, Joe Farrell, was on that jet working that screening. And there's a famous story, it's sort of legend has it, that Barry Sonnenfeld, the director, really didn't like research and didn't like Joe Farrell, not because maybe of Joe, but because of what he stood for, which was research. And the story goes that Barry Sonnenfeld and Joe and all the executives were about to take off. And Barry said something like, well, the only good news about being on this private jet is if it goes down, Joe Farrell's coming with us. It's a famous story.
No, Joe had a stranglehold with Bob and Terry.
Yeah, they were very close, very close.
And Joe had like hocus pocus, right? You kind of go, the numbers are the numbers, but he would just be like, no, you don't understand the numbers. It's really this. And we're like, what? But he was good to me. But yeah, he was powerful. I mean, listen, Bob and Terry were massively powerful, as you remember.
So why did you leave that? 6 years of a really good run.
I actually, early on, I'm like, I like what producers do. I like that lifestyle. I was single at the time and in a family. I'm like, it sounds fun to be able to go out of town and to live somewhere. I like the bonding that producers had with the filmmakers and the writers and the directors. We'd be in like hair and makeup tests as an executive to sign off and approve them. And I remember thinking to myself, God, I want to be in the meetings that devise the hair and makeup test for the studios.
Yeah.
Also, I am no genius, but I was smart enough to go, hold on one second. I have no ownership. I have no real upside. I'm an employee, a complete straight employee. I need to build something in my life. And I was like, okay, I want to be a producer. And the reason why Intermedia came up, one, they offered me a fortune to go over there. But two, we made movies, everything from like small movies that were Academy movies to like Terminator 3. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to work on movies that are big, small, medium-sized, movies that exist just for awards. I wanted just that whole breadth of things. And also, I love Lorenzo. Lorenzo's like my father when it comes to the film business. But it was tough, right? You can never be a king where you're once a prince.
You were only going to go so far.
Only go so far. And in my arrogance, I was like, I want to be the guy.
It's not arrogance. It's the Jersey chip.
It's a Jersey chip. And the other thing, and I hate to say it, is I also am so fearful of complacency.
I got that from what you said about your parents and grandparents.
Yeah. For me, you always have to be innovating and moving. And it's funny, I'm not restless, but the moment I am. You know, the moment that you notice that thing in the room, you can't get it out of your head. And I'll never forget the guy, Nigel Sinclair, who is head of Intermedia, came to me and said, listen, do you have any suggestions for this executive role? Here's what the responsibilities entail. I'm like, okay. And I drove home and I'm like, that sounds like a job I would want. And Kevin, up to that moment, I never in a million years, I was happy forever. But listen, it's Hollywood, right?
Did they reach out to you or did you pursue it?
Well, they reached out to me for ideas for the job, different executive ideas. I called them and I'm like, listen, I don't want to put you in a tough spot or make it awkward, but I'd be interested in that. And they're like, that was our whole point. We want you there. We just didn't want to offend you and offend Warner Brothers. But, listen, you know what it's like. You could be really seduced into a lifestyle at the studio. Like you drive onto that lot, it's like magical. You wear that suit every day. You're in that office, the commissary. If you're not careful, you look up one day and go, God, I've lost all my edge. I've lost maybe what I wanted to do. And at the time, I was 30. And I remember thinking, if I'm going to make some stupid choices, this is the time to make it. And so I went to Intermedia, which there were 3 moments in my career where I had good friends of mine sit me down and go, you're making a mistake. 1 was going to Intermedia. 2 was becoming a producer. And 3 was becoming an independent producer. But yeah, so I left Warner's. It was devastating. I thought I would never be invited back, ever. And Lorenzo was heartbroken. At the time, I thought he was an asshole for being heartbroken. Now I look back and realize I was the asshole for being angry at him for being heartbroken. He was right. He invested a lot in me and he had my back and empowered me. And I got a profile and I left.
How long were you at Intermedia?
Only 3 years.
And you learned about the international space more so.
That's what it was. I had no idea how the sausage was made. I had no idea about how the foreign business worked. I didn't no idea what a bond, contingency, financing. I didn't no idea about cost of money.
Oh, you needed to do that job. You needed to learn those things. And suddenly budgeting became an entire new concept and conceit for you. How did you approach budgeting then?
I pretended I knew what I was doing because I don't think people at Intermedia realize that studios, you're in your silo and you have everybody else do something. So you're in rooms where they're discussed. But usually when they start talking about certain budget or certain financial things, you start doodling, right? You're like, I'm the creative guy. And so what you do is you teach yourself. You surround yourself with line producers who you trust. And you never say, I don't know what I'm doing, because these are tough men and women. They look at you and they don't respect you. But what you do is you subtly start learning, asking questions over time. You see mistakes that are made. And I don't want to say it's not brain surgery. It's tough. It takes a time. But I taught myself. I taught myself being around really smart people that did it well.
You just paid attention. Basil, how would you characterize the biggest aha moment in budgeting that you got? In other words, my next book that's coming out in November is called How to Score in Hollywood. And it's really about getting to a green light, comping correctly, making good business decisions pre-green light. That's really the thesis of the book. How did you do that to try to mitigate risk as much as possible? Because you learned it was baptism by fire.
I think the mistakes that are made to this day are punting financial problems to the future. Post, right? Like, oh, we'll do a post when we get to post. And understand that if you have a problem on that day, that's going to be a problem 6 months down the road. And so deal with it at that moment. Second thing is, if a filmmaker says, I see this movie and it's 50 days, I don't see how I could do it any shorter, and you get a 40-day schedule, that is going to be a 50-day schedule. So you have to be a realist and you have to listen and you have to understand what the filmmaker wants and needs.
I would also challenge that to say that a filmmaker is going to ask for 50, but really they only need 40. So you have to be able to monitor the sandbagging too.
Oh, yeah. No, at a certain point, there's a dance. But at a certain point, they'll say to you, I don't know how to get it. And you go through. You don't just hear what they have to say. You have to go through it, the schedule and what they're going to do, everything. And sometimes you're like, oh, don't worry, we'll just cut out 5 days and we'll put it in the other days. Like, you have to be a realist. I mean, it's funny, the creative process is dreamlike. I mean, your head has to be in outer space sometimes, and you have to go with your heart and your gut, and you got to completely almost get rid of all earthly things sometimes when you're in the creative process. And then you shift to the budget process, and you have to do the complete opposite. The assistant cameraman needs X amount of man hours. it's the details, the specifics of it. Like you could die of 1,000 cuts, right? And I think that's what was so jarring for me because I had no idea.
What was one of them that you failed at? In other words, I made this movie for too much effing money. I should not have succumbed to that. I should not have given over. My instincts told me this should have been $15 million less than it was made for.
Gods of Egypt. This is later on as a producer. Seventh Son. Seventh Son was a really cool series of English books.
But it didn't have the audience to stand by it to have that level of budget.
Exactly right. So here's what happens. At the time, the books were great. It was about a 11-year-old kid who was the apprentice of they call it a spook, which is like someone who kills witches. And he falls in love with another 11-year-old girl who's a witch. And it's that kind of triangle. We said, okay, well, let's make the kid older so there could be romance.
Aspirational, yeah.
Aspirational. And then next thing you know, we had Dante Ferretti as our production designer. We had Jeff Bridges. We had Julianne Moore. The movie was like $100 and something million. And it was always supposed to be a weird, edgy Tim Burton.
Incredible. Great, great example. And it just took on a life of its own.
Yep.
And you somehow knew it in your gut, didn't you?
We did, because you drift to this weird middle number, let's say 70. And you're like, fuck, we're in a weird middle number. Most adults would go, okay, let's trim to get it below the middle number. But we movie business geniuses, we go, no, let's go higher and let's have more action and more visual effects and more monsters. Like we added big visual effects monsters. We just added on top of that. And I look back and I'm like, damn, we did a disservice to the underlying.
God, I love this, Basil. I can't tell you. And I don't think people would do that if they read this book. I shit you not. Listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about your career as a producer, because that's really where you made your mark. You had your base,
yes.
But as a producer, you did some pretty wild and cutting-edge stuff. We'll be back in a moment.
If you're curious about how movies actually turn a profit, I've got something for you. My upcoming book, How to Score in Hollywood, dives into the intersection of creative instinct and audience insight, and where the business of film meets the art of storytelling. The book is available for pre-order now on your favorite bookseller platform. I'm also putting together a book launch team, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. We're looking for people to help spread the word ahead of our November release, and also to leave a short book review after its release. In exchange, you'll get early access to the book, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and more. Sign up to join my launch team or for book updates at kevingetz360.com. And as always, thank you for your support.
We're back with the exceptionally gifted producer, Basil Iwanyk, who has such a good story coming up. By the way, I never asked you earlier, what even got you to go to the mailroom? As a boy, did you have a passion for
mail?
That's good.
Here's the thing. I didn't want to be in business, whatever that meant, because I saw my dad commute every day for 2 hours a day into the city, and he would get home at 8:30 at night.
So did my dad.
Yeah. It did not look fun. You saw it on their face. It was just the wipeout. I didn't have
Suburban Transit,
yeah. The bus.
The bus.
And I couldn't be a doctor because I can't stand inside of blood, which is ironic. And the lawyers at that point, it was before LA law. So lawyers were like, it wasn't sexy. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be in the movie business. I'm going to go out to LA, spend a couple years there.
Why? Did you see a movie that you said, I've got to do that?
My whole life, I've loved movies.
See, I didn't know that about you.
Oh my God. It has been one of the greatest moments of my life is when my dad came home and was like, I go, what's in that box? It's called a VCR. And down the street from my house, which I could bike to, was a video store.
Like a mom and pop store, right?
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Are we in Asbury Park now, or are we still in?
No, Freehold.
For those of you who don't know, it's like next door.
Yes.
It's Bruce Springsteen territory.
Anytime.
Thus, the title Thunder Road, by the way, correct?
Yeah.
Springsteen song.
Although, it's interesting. You smoke out people's experience and who they are by Thunder Road. Most people go, Springsteen song. Some people say, oh, the Robert Mitchum tough guy movie from the 60s. And some people go, oh, that was where they raced in Greece. They raced on Thunder Road at the end of the movie. So it's like you solicit people's life experiences from where they know Thunder Road. Most people,
What was the truth, though?
Thunder Road. Oh,
Springsteen song.
yeah. I mean, with my name, you can't put my name in it.
Basil Iwanyk Productions.
I know.
Better known as Billy Productions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were saying, by the way, was there a movie that you saw and was like, that is my absolute favorite, that changed my life?
Two. And I should say, Star Wars, Raiders, all those movies were religion to me, right, growing up. But there were two movies that I realized that movies weren't just about a roller coaster ride. One was Lawrence of Arabia, which I couldn't believe what I was watching. I couldn't believe the scope and the complexity of the characters. And I'd never heard anything so beautiful. That music, it was so overwhelming to me. And it was on the 4:30 movie. Remember the 4:30 movie on Channel 9 when you were growing up?
I remember the 4:30 movie and the Sunday night movie.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the Planet Games League, right?
Yes.
But I remember, weirdly enough, which is so strange, the second movie which changed my life was Ordinary People. Because my parents went through a rough divorce, like really rough divorce. And I watched that movie and I still almost tear up. I watched that movie and it wasn't about divorce, but it was about the
Alvin Sargent.
Exactly. Remember, it was the son who drowned, whatever, and the family falling apart. And
the wrong son died in Timothy Hutton's mind.
Exactly. Like the self-loathing and the guilt. And I remember when my parents got divorced, it was a drawn-out process. It was awful. I was the oldest son. I blamed myself, all the other stuff. I watched that movie, and it was so impactful to me. And I realized, holy shit, movies aren't just about entertainment and like distracting me, but sometimes I learn about myself. I learn about some dark, complex things. Sometimes movies can help you on a journey for enlightenment or redemption or whatever it was. And that movie just shook me to the core because I don't know how old I was 11 or 12.
We share this, you and I. I didn't know that. I used that as what I called the perfect screenplay.
Yeah.
And if you read it today, you can see the subtlety, the economy of words, the economy of description. I like to talk about that moment when Mary Tyler Moore is going up the stairs. And right before she makes the turn to go up the stairs, there's a picture frame just a little bit off center. And she moves it to be perfect. Told you everything about the character.
And think about the genius of the casting. Mary Tyler Moore was America's sweetheart. Donald Sutherland always played an oddball. But I remember that last scene, Donald Sutherland sitting on a step and he's sitting next to Timothy Hutton. And then it goes to credits. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just see? And so that for me was, I realized there's magic here. But listen, the world was bigger than it was now, right? I mean, it was a great thing of my kids, and they think they can do, and my kids' friends, they think they can go and do whatever they want. Back then, being in the movie business was like, if I would have brought it up, they would have thought I said, I want to be a Jedi Knight or something.
Sure. I'm going to ask you a few movie titles to get into the producer conversation, and I'm going to start, of course, with John Wick.
Yes.
How the hell did you come across it? Why didn't anyone else see it?
So the script was called Scorn, and it was a 75-year-old man. We optioned it for $15,000.
When you say we, Thunder Road.
Thunder Road. Now, I got really lucky because I have two best friends in the world, but they both work in showbiz. One of them is Jimmy Darmody, who you know well.
Jimmy Darmody. Call out to you, Jimmy.
Another one's Charlie Ferraro. Charlie represented the script. Everybody passed on it. I'm like, there's something interesting here. We went to Clint Eastwood. They never even read it. And I remember Harrison Ford, who I knew because I made a couple of movies with Harrison Ford and who I love. Like, I legitimately, he's a great man. I remember he said something interesting, is revenge is the weakest motivation for a character. I was like, oh shit. I'm hanging out with Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, hey, Keanu just finished directing his movies in post. He just did 47 Ronin. He wants to be back in action as an action movie. do you have anything? And I said, well, I have the script, but it's a 75-year-old man. He's like, send it to me. Jimmy sent it. He goes, this is good. We sent it to Keanu. Keanu was like, I like this movie. This is cool. I know how to make it younger. I like how sparse it is. I like how noble the character is. I like the clean emotion. This is before Gun Fu. This is before any of the action. This was on the page. And we went into a 9-month development process with him that went up and down and up and down.
But wasn't revenge his principal motivation?
It was. Keanu didn't care. Keanu thought that's clean.
Do you agree with Harrison's assessment? I'm not sure I agree with it.
I don't agree with it at all. But I think the genius of Derek Kolstadt's script was most of the audience members don't understand if like your partner who was a police officer was killed or your squad in Iraq was ambushed and everyone was dead or whatever the case may be. But the idea that some punk took away your puppy, the puppy that your wife who was dying gave to you saying, maybe you can learn how to love again. It was hope. It doesn't matter who you were. You got that right away. You're like, oh my God, I would fucking totally do it. Now, I knew that it was going to be a potentially absurd premise that people were going to reject. But the people that didn't reject it, I knew were going to connect with it because it was Keanu and this puppy. It was like so brutal. We brought Chad and Dave in.
Chad and Dave, they're amazing.
I know.
What even got you thinking that they could bring this to life? Because so much of it, I mean, Keanu is great in it, and the writing is solid. But really, these two guys, I call them choreographers.
You got to remember, I left Warner Brothers. I was a producer at Warner Brothers for a long time. So after I left as an executive, I went back as a producer, and I loved it. I had a great time. And just like I got restless when I was an executive, I started getting restless as a producer. And I'll never forget it. It was a Saturday morning, and I get a call from one of the very senior executives at Warner's, and it was the Saturday after The Town comes out. And he's like, congratulations on The Town, but more importantly, where's the Clash of the Titans 2 script? And I remember going, God, I don't know if I want to make small movies. Same thing I said before. I want to make small movies. I want to make big movies. I want some ownership. I want some upside. And John Wick was our first independent movie.
Who financed it?
We cobbled together the financing from a bunch of random people. But here's the great part of it, which I know this has been told before. There was this one guy who put up the financing, who clearly didn't have the financing. I mean, it was a joke. And we found out at the last minute he gets the money and he finances it. We find out later it was Eva Longoria giving him the money to give it to us. So Eva Longoria has made tens of millions of dollars on John Wick 1.
Wow. Now, let's call out Jason Constantine.
Oh.
May he rest in peace. One of the greatest guys, head of acquisitions at Lionsgate, who believed in it when no one else did.
So I've had angels in my life along the way, and I've had projects that have angels in their life along the way. The first one was Patrick Waxberger, who was like, I could sell the crap out of this.
Oh, you had three angels on this particular project.
Yes. Patrick was one of them. The other ones were Jimmy Darmody and Charlie Ferraro, because Keanu was Jimmy's client and Derek Kolstad was Charlie's client. There was an ease there. And then when we finished the movie and we screened it for everybody, the movie that everyone's seen, the delivered movie, everybody in town passed. Everybody. And I remember we had this disastrous screening at the Cinerama Dome. I thought it was going to be a feeding frenzy.
I don't remember that because I did them. I thought they were all enormously successful. Didn't it score through the friggin' roof?
So the first movie we previewed once and it scored like a 78.
Okay, so that's not through the roof.
Not through the roof, but we thought it was going to be pure rejection. But it's something I'll never forget. People were watching the movie. There was dead silence. Everyone's like, what is going on here? It's Keanu just moping around as a puppy. There's some action. And then there was this one moment when Michael Nyquist calls John Leguizamo and says, I heard you struck my son. And John Leguizamo goes, sir, he stole John Wick's car and killed his puppy. And Michael Nyquist just goes, oh, and hangs up the phone. The entire audience erupted in laughter. And they realized this movie is supposed to be fun. It's absurd and fun. And so I knew it was going to work. And I didn't preview it again. We did a lot of friends and families. We rented out the Cinerama Dome, invited every acquisition executive in Hollywood, and thinking, okay, this is going to be one of the great days of my career. And everybody passed. everybody. Jason Constantine loved it, but he's like, that's the good news. The bad news is I can't give you an MG, a minimum guarantee.
Why?
Because there were a lot of people at the studio that didn't believe in it. And so he's like, we're going to take it for free. We'll have a P&A commitment and a screen commitment. Now, I realized in retrospect, the reason why they did a screen commitment is that a lot of Patrick's foreign sales were based on a minimum screen commitment. So I think they kind of balanced out the numbers and realized we got to pay for this, or at least buy this. And then the big event that happened after that is Tim Palin, who was head of marketing at the time, calls me and goes, I got something to show you. Don't show it to anyone else. I think this is genius. I'm like, okay. He sends me a trailer for John Wick. And it was genius. It was so well done.
He's such a talented guy.
And then the equally crazy thing is David Spitz, who's head of distribution, calls me and just said, we all watched this trailer. I think one of the Matthew Vaughn movies, like Kingsman, fell off a date in early October. This was late August, Kevin. Late August, okay? This movie fell off a date in early October.
We want to put it in that slot.
Let's put it in that slot. It was a mad dash. And it became John Wick.
How many sequels later?
Well, we did 4 John Wicks. We did Ballerina. We did a TV show. The Continental was a TV show. And then we have the Donnie Yen movie, which we're going to be shooting in January.
Incredible.
It's insane. It's why we do it. It's like I tell people all the time.
Yeah, but no one believed in it, but you did. And that's, to me, I want listeners to hear that. If you believe in something, you do it responsibly. You find those building blocks that keep adding on top of what you believe in, you really could come up with something. The Town is an example of a movie that is so good. Tell us about how that came to fruition.
Well, what was interesting about The Town, you were talking about how movies look great in retrospect. At the time,
it didn't score well, did it?
No, it was terrible. You were there. It scored horribly. We reshot the ending. We had 6 previews. And after the 4th screening, and everyone liked it. When you liked the movie, the studio liked the movie, but you said something, you go, I have a theory, and I'll never forget this. You go, I think a third of the audience has an issue that our guys are shooting at police officers. And they have a moral issue with what they're doing. And they're never going to get behind these guys. Let's throw all them out. They're never going to see the movie. And let's just focus on the people that are not passing moral judgment on these characters in this movie. And once we did that, we understood how to get through it.
I don't remember ever saying that, but that's exactly right. You weren't vanilla anymore.
It reminded us that we were doing a noir gangster movie, right? And that was a huge moment of that movie. People didn't get it. And also, Jeremy Renner, Hurt Locker just came out, right? So he wasn't even, I don't think he was nominated at the time. Ben was Ben.
How'd you get Ben in?
Ben is the one who came in with the book.
Ah.
Yeah. And the irony is the original plan was going to be, I think, Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg. And then Ben was going to play the John Hamm part.
It's like The Fighter.
I know, exactly. And then it morphed into the cast we had. And at the time, it was not considered a movie that anyone thought would do well. I mean, John Hamm was a TV guy. Blake Lively was on Gossip Girl. Jeremy Renner did some independent movies. It was a character actor. Ben, people were like, we don't know about Ben. And then I think we had Chris Cooper and Pete Postlewaite and stuff. So it's funny, a lot about our Thunder Road movies. In retrospect, they sounded good. At the time, I'm telling you, I was there. It sucked. At the time, there were all those movies where I'm like, we're fucked here.
Well, here's another one that ended up really cutting into the cultural zeitgeist, which is Sicario.
Yeah.
Another one that tested okay, but there was one particular very violent scene that the audience really responded to. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Sicario, by the way, we optioned that script for $15,000. $15,000. We bring Taylor Sheridan in to pitch him a border movie.
You brought Taylor in?
Yeah. We bring Taylor Sheridan in.
What was he doing at that point? He hadn't really done much, right?
He was about 3 months away from quitting the business and going to Wyoming and working in the horse business.
Wow.
He had 3 scripts that he wrote: Hell or High Water, which is called Comancheria, Wind River, and Sicario. And I think I read Comancheria, which is Hell or High Water. We bring him in.
That was CBS Films, right?
Yeah. And this is before these were made.
You know, I did that one. Then I did Wind River also.
Which is one, yeah, that was one of ours too.
I know. And you remember that call with Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, of course.
Oh, that call. That was one of the last ones where I had to really take him on. He said, if you have to cut that rape scene down and the scores are going to come up. And I said, au contraire, I don't believe that. He says, well, there's too much thrusting. And I said, it's about the rape. The rape itself is so violent. Yeah. It's not going to, and I don't suggest you take it out. I think it's very powerful. And he was so pissed that I didn't side with him.
Well, that's what I was kind of saying about like The Town. Sometimes you have to look at the DNA of the movie and just put your arms around it and protect it. And we all get in those situations where you dream of it overperforming. But I think if you keep your authenticity, audiences will find it. I mean, I think on both of those movies they had the case. And the thing about Taylor was he was in a really, really bad place in his life. Not personally because he had a great wife and great kid, but professionally. And we pitched him this idea about the border. He says, no, I have my own border idea. You should read it. I remember thinking to myself, dude, you have nothing and you're still saying no. That shows Taylor's like stubbornness. He gave us Sicario and we're like, this script is unbelievable. It was around for about a year and a half. Anyone could have got it. Anyone.
No one wanted to go near it though.
No one go near it. Everyone's like, oh, the border, we've seen it. We gave it to CAA. All of a sudden, people were like, this movie's genius. And then we heard Denis Villeneuve, I love Entendis, this French-Canadian movie he made. He did a thing called Prisoners. It was imposed. It was supposed to be great. I called one of my friends at Warner's. They're like, we saw it. It is great. We bring Denis on. And for me, the lesson of that movie in terms of the testing process was we previewed the first cut of the movie in Clifton, New Jersey, which I loved. And they never tested Prisoners, apparently. And Denis like, so what should I expect? I'm like, I can tell you right off the bat, I kind of indirectly invoked you. I'm like, there's going to be people who hate the scene where Benicio kills the kids. They're going to reject the movie. That's just going to happen. Just be prepared for it. Like, be prepared for that to happen. And those people we will not pay attention to because we're not changing that scene. Everybody else is who we're going to pay attention to. I couldn't have been any more wrong. It was statistically the audience's favorite scene in the movie. And not only that, we had more people saying that the kids got off easy because Benicio shot them versus what happened to Benicio's daughter, who was dipped in a vat of acid. And I'm not going, if you have the audience in the palm of your hand like that, storytelling-wise, you could do whatever you want. If they understand the logic of it emotionally.
Correct. Rooted in truth, rooted in authenticity.
Yeah.
But you're genius, once again. And I've learned a lot in this hour with you, Basil, about what makes you tick. And bringing Denis on, bringing Taylor on, bringing all of these different folks, that is where your artistry meets this whole notion of, without dumbing it down, gun fu. It's not, gun fu sounds very basic, but you combine what you have said multiple times in this last hour, which is the notion of big and small. And I also take that as big concept, big ideas, but intimate stories, authentic stories, things that resonate for you. And I think they can go really hand in hand, and you've proven that.
I appreciate it.
Before we break, I just want to ask you about moving back to your place you grew up and opening a bookstore. I find it just extraordinary, and I need to understand what psychologically went through your mind to do that.
Well, for the move, it's really funny. I leave Jersey, and I'm ashamed that I was from the state. And then when I got to the halfway point of me living in LA, I started daydreaming about where I was from. And I started accepting who I was for good and bad from how I grew up. I started missing things. And not just like, oh, well, the pizza, because I could always do that. I was back here all the time. And then, having kids and seeing how they grew up and seeing what happened to LA. And, it was during COVID. We bought a house on the East Coast, and we always come here for the summer for about 10 years.
Where?
Spring Lake, where I live now.
That's the most Tony kind of area. Beautiful homes, close to the beach.
Oh, I'm 200 feet from the sand out that door.
Damn.
And it's my wife who's an LA girl. She's like, this is where we're the happiest. We're content. We can work on Zooms and stuff like that. You can get an office in the city, which I do. I have an office in Tribeca, and there's great staff there in Santa Monica. And she's like, when else are we going to do it? And I made a deal with her. I'm like, if we're going to move here, let's do something that we would have never done in LA. And I'm like, I want to open a bookstore. I don't plan to make a dime, but bookstores.
Why?
I love books my whole life. I'm a book nerd. On all my travels, I shot a lot of movies in the UK. Anyone would know this who has to go on location when you have a family. Sundays are miserable. Because Saturdays, when you're traveling, like Saturdays, you catch up on things at Saturday. You wake up Sunday morning, you're like, I miss home. And so I would spend so many hours in these bookstores, and I would buy the most esoteric books, and I was just a reading fanatic.
Wow.
I'm like, I want to open a bookstore. I go, I want to smell the books. I want that vibe. And I want some kid who's going to be like me to go, oh my God, this knucklehead from Freehold was able to become a movie producer, and he moved back home and he opened this bookstore because he loves storytelling. Fuck it. I'm going to take a shot.
Oh, man.
And I'm telling you, Kev, the bookstore has become, I don't make any money on it. I mean, I don't lose money on it, but it's not that. But the impact it's had culturally on the area, all the authors that come back. I was there today. My 14-year-old son works there for the summer, and I went there to bring him to lunch.
It's called Thunder
Road Books.
I'm wondering if I could ask Simon & Schuster to get it on my book tour.
Please.
And I'll do a book signing there if you're up for it.
Oh, 100%. Please. Oh, you'll love it. It's great.
So that means I'll see you towards the end of the year in person.
Oh, no, Kev, we have everybody come in because, we're only 50 minutes to an hour south of New York. So we get anyone who comes into the city.
Oh, it's done. I'm so excited about that. Now, you have a movie that just released that's getting a lot of buzz at Tribeca.
Yes, Relay, which I love. And it's one of my, I'll call it my old VCR movies when I was like 14, where you go, oh my God, like 3 Days of the Condor, these movies that were like The Conversation, things that I loved. And I can't believe we were able to pull that off. We had Ballerina just come out, Fight or Flight just came out, and we have a bunch coming out. Listen, we have about 6 movies in post. We're shooting one now. We have 4 movies in prep.
And why does that excite me? Because it means I'm going to get to see you.
Yes.
And I love seeing you. Basil Iwanyk, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us today. I'm really grateful, and you're such a good friend.
Well, Kev, I'm sure your audience knows this, but I'm just telling you as a filmmaker, when we go to Pasadena or wherever the hell we go and we have you when you walk in, the relief that we all have. Not because the movie's not going to preview well, not preview well, but we know if the issues are, you're going to navigate your way through it and find it. So I don't think you will ever understand how much you're appreciated, how much people will say, oh, Kevin Goetz is here tonight. And what's great about it is for people to know you're not just like a star fucker. You're not just going, oh, what's the big Warner Brothers movie or Disney and Marvel? No, you did John Wick. Like, I don't even think I paid you for John Wick. I think I called you. I'm like, I have no money. Like, here's, and so for you just to not only do like the big movies, but to do some of these small movies, and it just, you'll never understand how much we appreciate it. All of us. So,
thank you so much.
My pleasure, Kev.
To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed our interview today. I encourage you to watch many of the films discussed and also check out Basil's recently released suspense thriller, Relay. For more filmmaking and audience testing stories, I invite you to check out my book, Audienceology, at Amazon or through my website at kevingetz360.com. You can also follow me on my social media. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll welcome Hollywood powerhouse executive and former Walt Disney Studios chairman, Dick Cook. Until then, I'm Kevin Goetz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.